Do you want to hear a rumor? There is an existence in this world. Even the top armed groups around the world are afraid to death seeing it. Peter. But the surprising thing is that a killer like him is an elderly man in his 60s. A horde of men lay lifeless on the ground, and a man expecting death looks into the eyes of the man responsible for the slaughter and says he would have died a legend if he just died back then. Now he's being chased down by thousands of killers. He lost all of the assets that he had saved up. Isn't that tragic? His loyalty to the organization, a legend like himself, is now being threatened by those who want to take his life. It's you, isn't it, Peter? But you see, no matter how much I think, it just doesn't make any sense. Thousands of eyes are watching you and are after your life. But how are you still alive? And how come no one has been able to find you? Even if you're the legendary Peter, it doesn't make sense. Peter retorts. Do you want to know the answer? Even if thousands, no, even hundreds of thousands of eyes are watching my every move, you guys will never be able to find me. Because he lifts the mask covering his face. Unfortunately, the Peter you guys are looking for is now. We don't know what he says, but the man has a shocked expression on his face and says, no way, that's impossible. Peter's, it's impossible. In disbelief, Peter places an unlit cigarette on his lips and raises a gun with a silencer towards the horrified man. Peter's face is shrouded in darkness. 3 months prior, an elderly Peter is listening to his voicemail with a pile of pills in his hand. The man speaking in the voicemail states that Peter, if he remain untreated, will die in less than 3 months. A pretty young female student walks into the bookstore that Peter owns, looking to buy some middle school textbooks. Peter turns round to face the girl with a beaming smile on his face, saying, welcome. We sell every book we have here except for the ones we don't. The girl states that the book she wants is actually for her younger brother. Peter responds, is that so? You're a student from that high school, right? Yes. Judging by your name tag color, you're a senior. The girl, bewildered, says that's correct. How do you know so much? I know everything in this neighborhood. Peter pulls out a stack of brand new freshly sealed books. The girl says that that's not what she asked for. She wished for second-hand books, as she can't afford the new ones. Peter assures her that he doesn't need them anymore, so he'll just give them to her. The student still resists his generosity. However, Peter rips the seal on the books and offers her a warm smile and says cheekily, here, these are now used, right? I just know how much you adore your younger sibling, just by the look in your eyes, so be good to them while you still can, or else you'll regret it. Mister, have you ever regretted something before? The student queries. Peter tightens his grip on some yellow tape and begins to reminisce. The longer you live, the more regrets you have. However, you can never do anything about things in the past that you regret. You probably won't know what I'm saying. So, always take care of your sibling. Don't do something you'll regret later on. And just turn back and go. I won't kill you if you do. The student stops in her tracks, standing atop the counter with a knife raised, aimed at the elderly Peter. How did she know? The student thinks to herself. I've memorized the faces of every single student from that high school. But I still had to make sure just in case. You said you're a senior, yeah. It's a pity. That school was only built 2 years ago. She realizes that she's wrapped round his finger. The final nail in the coffin is that I've spent my whole life smelling the scent of blood. Did you really think you could cover up the scent of a knife with a poorly made perfume? The student resumes her attack. She again is stopped in her tracks, not by any words, but simply by the elderly man's glare. I'm the one holding the knife. But why? Does it feel like I'll be the one to die? Just by making eye contact, the girl instinctively jumps back into a defensive stance. Take the books. I know the things you said about your younger sibling are real. I've been doing this for 50 years. I can tell things by the look in somebody's eyes. You're from the Glory Orphanage like me, right? Their scripts haven't changed at all. Suddenly Peter leaps atop the girl to protect her from the men who burst into sight with guns and sinister smiles on their face. If a mission fails, the volunteer too is to be neutralized. Peter has been shot through his stomach. Then he suddenly pulls out a gun and aims it at the intruders, who are now holding the young student at gunpoint. Peter is knocked off his feet by a mysterious man. Your reputation's the greatest. But it seems the legendary Peter himself is nothing. The mysterious man snidely remarks. He's also known by the codename Eight-Legged Man. What is your reason for killing me, asks Peter. Boss doesn't like you. Me, why? If you step out of this world, thousands of chasers will be after your head. The water's already been spilled, because the bounty on your head is 7.6 billion won. Peter giggles to himself. That is funny, because that's exactly the same amount of money that I have in my bank account. That's right. It's the money you saved up for the entirety of your life, by putting your life on the line. But now that money is going to be in someone else's hands. How lucky of them, right? So, Senior Peter, please die by my hands. Peter is launched across the room by a punch. The men, suspecting him to be unconscious, approach. Peter lifts his head, with a smile on his face. It's a small present, he says, as he throws a flashbang towards the intruders. The men burst in a panic, as Peter is nowhere to be seen. In the pouring rain lies a defeated, injured and tired pair resting on the wall of a child's playground. I've gotten old, Peter reminisces once more on his life as a child raised in the organization. When others held a pencil in their handle, bled 365 days a year to learn how to hold a knife. When others were learning how to use SNS networks, he learned how to wiretap and eavesdrop until his ears were bleeding. When others went on dates and learned love, he had become a Russian spy, living with frostbite 24/7. Or he would be fighting in the middle of a terrorist group to survive. He had worked with his life on the line for years. But the situation changed when the new boss took over. I can't die like this. Can't let them take my money. That money is. A vision of a young child appears before his eyes close for one last time. The men who attacked Peter are chatting away in a kitchen with the Eight-Legged Man's hideout. Suddenly their conversation is disrupted by a young man whose clothes seem to almost be bursting at the seams. I'm sorry, but you've came to the wrong place. I came here because I know everything I know. Stop wasting my time and take me to the Eight-Legged Man. The man raises his fist and swings. However, his strike is stopped in its tracks as it's caught midway by the young man. He squeezes, breaking the very bones in the henchman's hand. The other tries to attack, but is quelled in an instant. The young man grabs an octopus's leg and wraps it round his hand. The henchman leaps forward, however next thing he knows the tentacle is wrapped round his throat, and is then launched across the kitchen, right into a boiling vat of soup. Who are you? Why? This is the only picture you guys have of my face. The young man raises a photo card, with an elderly Peter on it. I, Peter, a man that was once called the best in the field, had become the younger version of me when I opened my eyes. Even if thousands of people die thousands of times and wake up, the old Peter they're looking for is already dead. Peter has rejuvenated amidst a bustling train station bathroom. A shirtless Peter is looking at his rejuvenated body that used to belong to his 20-year-old self. The cancerous pain that was squeezing him to his death has disappeared as well. What's important is that the men after him cannot recognize him at all, as he is unrecognizable in comparison to his elderly self. Peter is in desperate need for new clothes. Unluckily enough, a group of delinquent gangsters appear. Excuse me, young man. I'm sorry, but it's a no-smoking area. Could you go outside? The gangsters respond. Did you say that to us? Are there any other smokers here besides you two? The agitated gangsters slap Peter. Peter walks slowly to the entrance and locks the door. He turns back around and makes a beeline towards the low-life scum. Peter raises his sleeves and strikes the fat gangster in the liver, instantly dropping him to the floor. The remaining gangster pulls out a pocket knife. Peter offers advice on how to hold the blade properly, further aggravating the tattooed man, who strikes toward Peter. However, is immediately disarmed by an unimpressed Peter, then knocked on the floor. Peter threatens the men. He exits the toilet with a fresh new suit. The place Peter grew up was known as the Glory Orphanage, that was operated small-scale by a religious facility, and now after 50 years has turned into a giant cartel that spreads its influence in all corners of the world. While wearing the mask named Glory Club, Peter vows to take it down with his own bare hands. A man sits alone in the middle of a room filled with the corpses of butchered pigs. The Eight-Legged Man approaches him. however, is suddenly surrounded by a group of large men known as the Wanna mercenary group. They initiate their attack. Moments later, the arrogant man who was sitting in the slaughterhouse is laying on the floor in shock. How could a human do this? The eight-legged man is choking a man in an inhuman way, with his head rotated 180 degrees, locking eyes with the mortified man on the floor. The eight-legged man enters his hideout and is surprised to see a young man sitting alone at a table eating away at a large variety of foods. What's odd is that it's not a working day. Excuse me, do you have a reservation with us? I don't have a reservation, but I do have a grudge. A grudge? Did I press you for your tab or something? Correct. But you see, my tab is a bit too big. About 7.6 billion or so. Lock the doors, the eight-legged man says with a serious expression on his face. Well then, you now have two choices. Option 1. You tell me Peter's whereabouts and go back alive. Option 2. You resist and die with a bullet in your head. Peter sarcastically responds, what should I do? I don't need either. Peter replies sarcastically, oh, I've yet to see anyone who's alive after hearing this story. How about this? Option 3. I'm Peter, and I'm the man who killed your subordinates. The eight-legged man becomes irritated, as he deems the young man to be a liar. Student, just know this is a real gun, so answer us honestly. What's your relation with Peter? Peter says that if he really wants to know, there is one method. You have to kill him. Is that so? How convenient. That's what I'm best at. Just make sure he can breathe. Just before the henchman can shoot, a chopstick pierces his throat, killing him instantly. The young girl who was at the bookshop prior states that there isn't anyone in the Glory Club that can do this. No, there isn't anyone in the country that can do this. While looking at the corpse of the henchman, the eight-legged man is impressed and offers to hire Peter in order to lower his guard. He then immediately whips a gun out and fires toward the direction Peter is seated. Peter raises the table to block the bullets. The eight-legged man laughs to himself, saying, "This isn't a movie. You can't block gunshots with a table like that." He approaches slowly, believing the young Peter to be shot due to the blood on the floor seeping from the table. The man is shocked as it's not blood, but chili oil. He frantically looks around to locate Peter. Peter, hanging from the ceiling, spits spicy soup in the eight-legged man's eyes, then subsequently disarms him and palm strikes his face. Is this really a kid? Peter reaches out his hand and snaps the man's neck. The man lays lifeless on the floor. He suddenly bursts with energy and grabs Peter's ankle and entraps who he thinks to be Peter in his notorious inhuman chokehold. How long has it been? The eight-legged man looks up, confused as to who was speaking. He is met with Peter looking down on him. Due to the soup in his eyes, he accidentally had grabbed his subordinate, not the young Peter. I've been doing this line of work for decades, so I am 100% sure that I am going to die to this man. It could be possible that the 12 apostles. No, he could even be even better than them. The eight-legged man attempts to flee, but the young Peter utters the words, "If you show your back when you think you've won, your head will fly off." We then get a flashback of a young eight-legged man at the Glory Club orphanage receiving training by an old Peter uttering the very same words. It can't be, there's no way. Peter. In a matter of seconds, Peter breaks every bone in the man's body. We then see a large man with a tattoo covering his back saying, "Tell all the glory killers that from this moment on, hunting Peter is allowed." A young girl grabs her father's sleeve and says, "Look," gesturing towards a billboard which has an ad from the Glory Club with a picture of an elderly Peter alongside the words, "Please give the elderly a warm meal." This is the way the organization advertises their hits on certain individuals. However, it's all for nothing, as Peter is now his rejuvenated self, not his former elderly self. He is now unrecognizable. Peter thinks to himself, if he is to take on the whole Glory organization, he'll need some reinforcements, and one person comes to mind. Peter enters an abandoned public restroom filled with corpses. He reaches the furthermost wall and presses a tile inwards. A secret passageway appears, leading way to a downward spiral staircase. At the bottom of the stairs, an extravagant room emerges from the darkness. A sharp needle at the end of a stick rests upon Peter's neck. He says, "Whether it be silk clothes to jade plates, they are of no use to you, aren't they? Since you're blind, anyway." A woman with a domineering dog is holding the stick and thinks to herself, "The punk's young." That said, For a petty thief, instead of childishness, he's exuding killing intent. I see. Did the glory send you? The woman attempts to strike him multiple times, but Peter evades each advance effortlessly. With a false confidence, the woman leaps forward with a high knee attack, but is grabbed by Peter and slammed into the floor. The blind woman smirks and barks an order, which results in her horrifying dog to launch at Peter. However, is instantly subdued, with belly rubs. Rejuvenation. The woman is shocked at Peter's rejuvenation, but believes him. So, you'll have a go with glory by yourself. How? I'll get in using the eye of the storm, replies Peter. The blind woman is confused. Peter further explains. Glory is set on catching me. And that's a way to hold and shake up the inside of glory with my own hands. I'll become a killer in the glory club. The blind woman says to Peter. You have become younger, and there isn't anyone that recognizes you. If that Peter becomes glory's killer. It's like they're planning Peter's capture in the palm of Peter's hands. You're a scary one, aren't you? There is only one way to become a killer in the glory club. And that is to get recruited in the glory's high school, which in actuality is a training facility for aspiring killers. Peter enrolls at the academy, under the alias Kim Seung-gu. Within the school there is a killer intensive class operated in secret, and it's Peter's goal to get scouted into said class. Peter alongside his new classmates are in the hall all gathered, and he wonders to himself how to get the attention of the hidden class. A light bulb in his head goes off. He casually strolls up on stage, stands at the podium, and speaks into the mic saying, My name is Kim Seung-gu, and I transferred here today. Hobby, fighting. Speciality, also fighting. And I am a killer. Everyone is bewildered, but the group of students in a secret room looking down on the hall have had their interest piqued. A group of delinquents approach Peter. Hey, killer, did you seduce Yejin? A large student bellows. Tears roll down his cheeks. This student, for the longest time, he only had eyes for one woman. Divine Honors High School's best lover. Today, he had lost his girlfriend's interest to Peter. The student swings for him, but he evades and flicks the delinquent on the forehead. In that little time, the bully realized that Peter could kill him in an instant if he wishes. As Peter is being taken away by a middle-aged teacher, we see the same young girl, named June Bile, from before wearing the school's uniform. She happens to attend the class that Peter wishes to get into. Outside in the courtyard, Peter sits beside June Bile with his lunch in hand. What are you gonna do? Kill me? Because of you, the company is only surveilling me. You do know how hard it is for me, right? Asks June Bile. June Bile, you should at least put up with that. You're only eating right now because I saved you. What do you mean, saved me? I survived on my own. You don't know anything. What kind of place this is, how scary this place is, and top of that, you don't even know who I am. Do you think an outsider like you can do something? Peter responds. You can help me. Why should I? She remarks. Because you're on the same boat as me, someone who doesn't know anything. I'm counting on you. June Bile. No, Liuna. She's shocked as to how he knows her real name. She peers back to question him, but he is nowhere to be seen. Peter throughout the week displays his extraordinary talent, his incredible eyesight, incredible speed, and incredible knife skills. While doing this, we see a shadowy figure watching over him in the background. We then see a teacher being taunted by a group of students. It then escalates, and they push him to the ground. Peter approached with a bin in hand. Did you hit the teacher? Even if I did hit him, what are you going to do? Just go away. Peter responds saying, and if I don't move? If you don't move, I'll have to spit, of course. The bully spits on Peter's shirt. He immediately swings, due to being irritated by Peter glaring at him. Peter evades the attack, and the many more that follow. Peter simply grabs his collar and throws the bully to the ground. The bully's friend with a brick in hand swings at him, who smashes the brick into pieces with his bare hand. The bullies instantly submit and apologize. They leave with their tail tucked between their legs. Peter reaches down to grab a phone one of the bullies left. However, the teacher attempts to kick Peter in the head while his guard is down, but is blocked with one arm. The teacher, with a smile on his face, says, "My eye for people is rather accurate. You're not a normal guy. As evidence, look at my cup. You didn't spill a single drop while fighting. Tell me, Sungu, where did you learn that? No. Why did you learn it?" Peter scowls. "I want to get revenge. My house, my family, my money. I lost everything I accumulated. I am the same as dead." Teacher: Kim Sungu, do you have any thoughts of joining the volunteering club? The teacher is actually the instructor for the secret killer class and has now recruited Peter. He was the one watching in the background. A few selected children learn the ways of life as a killer. Lee Sungu, you're a rare transfer student. It won't be easy. Welcome. This is where glory killers are fostered. The teacher opens the door only to reveal a totally normal class. Yoon Bile is shocked as to how Peter got in so fast. "I'm Kim Sungu. Thanks for the warm welcome." Two fit students approach. "I don't care what your name is. Kim Sungu or Duggu or whatever. Only people from the honor orphanage are allowed in here. How does it make any sense for an outsider like him to be here?" The teacher announces, "Let's just do a simple welcoming party." Two friendly-looking students say, "Then we should have some punch." Their expression shift. "Blood punch. Hee hee." The two students initiate the fight, and the scene skips to after the fight, and the two bullies won. With sweat on their face, they celebrate. Walking down the hall, Peter encounters Yoon Bile. "Aren't you underestimating the volunteer club? You can't fool me. I was watching you earlier. Not once did you put any strength into your fist." Peter feigns ignorance. She then announces she has proof. "Unlike them, you're not even sweating." She pushes him against the wall. "What was the reason? It's already suspicious that you're in this school. What is it that you want to earn by hiding your powers? What are you scheming? Do you really want to know?" he asks. "Just answer me," she retorts. He slides down the wall and walks off. "Sorry, but it's time for lunch. It's midnight," she shouts. The teacher, addressing the whole killer class, announces, "Here, attention. There's a new quest. The client is a rich group's chairman, Choi Yoon Chang. You've all heard of him, right? He's one of Glory's biggest sponsors. The team who'll be able to succeed will receive a volunteer certificate with the chairman's recommendation. In other words, you'll officially become a killer. The quest is to recapture the chairman's only son who has been kidnapped. Raise your hand if you want to do this." The two fit students raise their hands, and so does Yoon Bile and Peter.